Welcome back. In all areas of the country, grazing acres are a prized natural resource. Cattlemen work hard to make the most of each acre available, and controlling weeds is one of the most cost-effective ways to increase pasture productivity. We learn more from Cattlemen and Cattlemen reporter Brian Baxter in southeastern Kansas.
Pasture land is essential to the success of the beef industry, and as the U.S. cattle herd rebuilds, cattlemen will use every grazing acre to convert grass into beef. However, when weeds occupy space in the pasture, they rob cattlemen of potential profit.
It's important to control broadleaf weeds in general in a pasture situation, is because broadleaf weeds take up some valuable real estate in our pastures, and that real estate could be inhabited by more desirable species, especially our grasses. And so by allowing them to stay in our pastures, what we're basically giving up is we're giving up grazing area. And so getting control of those weeds and allowing grasses to take back over those areas is of utmost importance to us.
In southeastern Kansas, the O'Brien Cattle Company works diligently to remove weeds from their pastures and make more grass available for their cattle. The family business is structured with cattle on pasture the majority of the year, so every mouthful of grass matters.
We're mainly a stocker operation. We buy cattle locally and then out of the southeast, probably a 50-50. And then we also have a cow-calf unit, and we use the cows to kind of come along behind the yearlings to clean up.
Forage is a vital role for us. It's kind of how we make our livelihood. Running the cattle on the grass, and that's where we get our pounds, and that's how we raise our cattle.
We count on our forage for about 2/3 of our cattle's intake, half to 2/3 depending on the time of year. You know, and then the way grain prices and feed prices has been, it's really a big deal.
In the Midwest, there are several weed and brush species that can take over a pasture if not properly managed. The O'Briens have found through experience that herbicide application is the best way to control weeds, making more room for both grass and cattle to flourish.
Our biggest weed problems are thistle, and then on the brush side would be hedge and locust. And sericea. Sericea is a big problem, and it's always a battle that we tackle every year. We've got a really good county weed man. He's showed us a lot and helped us a lot. Matter of fact, we put a lot of faith in him.
Where weeds and brush are growing, grass is not. Weeds occupy valuable space in the pasture, take valuable water and nutrients, and will eventually take over if not treated.
Oh, our stocking rate, if we weren't spraying, would drop dramatically, probably a third. Weeds and brush just take over, but it's just productivity of it, just basically drops to zero.
Thistle would be a good example of that one, taking the ground. With the rosette, it spreads out, holds your grasses down. In turn, the cattle won't graze in a thistle pasture, and they expand rapidly.
For many farms and ranches, the fall months can provide a good window of opportunity to use time and labor to apply herbicides and improve pastures.
When it comes to doing applications in the fall of the year, we are slowing down a little bit. So having that time period in the fall where we can actually go out and do an application is kind of beneficial from a labor standpoint. But it also offers us several opportunities to get control of some of these weeds.
Well, that chaparral, that's why it works pretty good for us, because of the time of the year that we can spray. Late summer, it's not quite as hectic. The spring is normally we're swamped.
Labor availability is just one on a long list of benefits for fall herbicide application. In many cases, weed species are easier to kill in the fall months.
So one of the keys to understanding what it takes to control these is to understand how they're putting carbohydrates down to the roots. So in the fall of the year, things like thistles are putting carbohydrates down to the roots. And so they're basically putting food in the cellar to get them through winter until next year. Well, if we do a herbicide application during this time of year when they're moving those carbohydrates down to the root systems, we're also moving that herbicide down too, so we get a much better kill on some of these species.
To see a good flourish of grasses, fall is probably one of your better times to go in because you get the time for that plant to get its root structure strong and start pulling the nutrients that it needs for the following year. The fall will work better for your grasses. You can get your control, but you still, in the spring, but you have your skeletons still standing out there. Fall gives you time for Mother Nature to help you and perform its job.
The timing, it's very weed specific. So if I'm going after something like multiflora rose or blackberry, I would want to start thinking about those, probably doing the application sometime in September. However, if it's something like the thistles, musk thistle, bull thistle, Canada thistle, those types of things I might go after in October, November. And we certainly want to get our applications done on all these species before the ground freezes.
The herbicide products from Dow AgroSciences give cattlemen control of weeds for months after spraying. This residual control prevents new weeds from growing and lets grasses come up instead.
Having products like Forefront HL and Graze On Next HL that have some soil residual, what that allows us to do is that once we get control of that weed, there's enough residual there in the soil that keeps whatever the next weed in line is, it keeps it down. And that's really important as we repair our grass stands and we're coming into the following year. So having something with soil residual activity in there to hold other broadleafs back, it gives our grasses more time to become competitive and take over those bare areas where those broadleafs had previously been.
A team effort between Ed, Scott, and the O'Briens has led to a successful weed management program using herbicides. The four agree that working together is the best way to improve pastures.
We've attended clinics and just kind of everything that any chance we can use to broaden our view on the pasture and being stewards of the land, and it just kind of goes hand in hand with the raising of the grass. You got to kind of manage the weeds here.
Dow has been a good asset for helping us with education material. We always like more because when we educate, it takes our job a lot easier to do when people know what they're fighting.
Well, I think it's important, you know, mainly the bottom line, and it's back to the stewards of the land, you know, taking care of it and making it a better place for the next generation. You know, that's what we all want to, as ranchers, we want to be good stewards.
Reporting from Kansas, I'm Brian Baxter for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Dow AgroSciences offers a full range of products that can be suited to fit nearly any rangeland or pasture. For help selecting the best product for your management goals, you can visit rangeandpasture.com to contact a dealer and find the right product for the job.